Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, I spent way too much time scrolling through my newsfeed this morning.
Oh, yeah?
And honestly, it felt a little bit like I was reading a supermarket tabloid, but
Wow.
instead of, movie stars, it was all computer scientists.
It really has felt like a soap opera in the tech world recently, hasn't it?
It really has. It seems like every time you blink, there's another headline about a top researcher or a safety expert or even a co-founder
Hmm.
resigning from one of the major AI labs, the ones OpenAI, Anthropic, the big players. And it's always these cryptic tweets and leaked memos.
Exactly. And it's so easy to get caught up in the drama of who said what and, who's going where. It just feels like Silicon Valley gossip.
Right. But we are not here to talk about gossip today.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about risk.
Yes.
Because while we're all busy, popping popcorn and reading about the drama, we might be missing this massive flashing red light on our own business dashboards.
That is precisely right.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the source material we are unpacking today. It's a fascinating article by Johan Steyn, who's a prominent AI thought leader.
And it's called The AI Insider Exit is Your Early Warning Signal.
Yep, the title pretty much gives away the thesis, doesn't it?
It does.
Stein's argument is that business leaders, they need to stop treating these headlines as tech news and start treating them as what they are: critical procurement and risk signals.
So if you're a business leader using these tools and embedding them in your products, your customer service, these resignations aren't just drama.
They're not. They are, as he puts it, the canary in the coal mine.
I love that canary in the coal mine imagery. But let's play devil's advocate for a second here.
Okay.
People quit jobs all the time, especially in tech. High turnover is practically a feature, not a bug, right? Why does Steyn think these specific exits are so different?
It comes down to the unique nature of the AI supply chain right now. Steyn points out that we're dealing with this extreme supply chain concentration.
Okay, let's unpack that, because usually when I think of supply chains, I'm thinking of like car parts or microchips.
Well, think of it this way. In the early internet, you had thousands of servers, thousands of websites. It was decentralized.
Right.
But right now, with frontier AI, there's this massive bottleneck.
Huh.
There are only a very small number of companies, I mean, you can count them on one hand, that provide the foundation models everyone else is using.
So you're talking OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, maybe one or two others.
Exactly. And pretty much everyone else is downstream. If you're running a business today, the odds are you're building your customer service, your coding workflows, your marketing on top of an API from one of these vendors.
Downstream is a great way to put it. It kind of implies that whatever they dump in the river upstream, well, it ends up in our drinking water.
That is exactly the point. And that is why the insider exit matters so much.
How so?
If you buy a traditional piece of software, like a CRM, you're buying a static product. If their lead engineer quits, maybe the next update is delayed, but the product is the product. With AI, you are renting intelligence. You are completely subject to their internal decisions, their stability, and crucially, their risk appetite.
And Steyn brings some receipts here. This isn't just theoretical. He points to some very specific, very recent reporting to ground all this in reality.
He does. He references a CNN report from, February 11th, 2026, so just a couple of days ago. And it highlights this distinct pattern of departures and public warnings at places like OpenAI and Anthropic.
And these aren't junior coders leaving for a better paycheck.
No, not at all. These are the people closest to the systems, the people shaping the entire market.
And there was that Financial Times report he mentioned too. That one really stood out to me because it hinted at the why.
Yes, that is crucial context. The FT reported on a strategic pivot happening at OpenAI. The push to prioritize, ChatGPT improvements in commercial scale was causing a lot of internal friction.
So it's product speed over longer horizon research.
That's the one. So you got the commercial team on one side saying, we need to ship this now to keep our valuation up. And then you have the research team saying, whoa, wait, we haven't finished testing the safety rails.
And when you see the people who built the rails leaving right after a pivot like that, it signals something isn't right.
It signals a shift in priorities that you are definitely not going to see in the marketing brochures.
And let's not forget that Reuters report from December 2025. That one was pretty alarming. It suggested that AI companies' safety practices were failing to meet global standards.
Which brings us right back to your first question. Why is this different from normal turnover?
Right.
Steyn argues that in high-stakes industries, and frontier AI is absolutely high stakes, these kinds of insider departures are often the first visible signal that pressures, incentives, and controls are all out of balance.
So when we see a safety researcher rage quit or post some cryptic warning on social media, we shouldn't just scroll past.
Yeah.
We should look at that and say, hang on, is the product I'm paying for about to get less safe?
Precisely. And Steyn actually breaks down what usually goes wrong inside these labs to trigger these exits. He identifies 3 root causes.
Okay, hit me with them. What are the big 3?
The first is misaligned incentives. This is that classic tension between the push to ship faster and monetize sooner versus the need for, safety and rigor.
Which makes sense. I mean, these companies are under immense pressure. They have investors to please.
Correct. But here's the rub. The incentive for the lab is to capture market share. The incentive for you, the customer, is reliability and safety. If the lab prioritizes their speed over your safety to beat a competitor.
They're basically transferring that risk directly to me.
Exactly.
That's a scary thought. Okay, what's the second cause?
The second is weakened internal challenge. This is when it becomes culturally or even structurally harder for staff to slow things down or to raise red flags.
So this is really a culture issue.
It is. If the people whose literal job it is to say stop feel like they can't be heard, or if they're just getting overruled by product managers every single time, eventually they leave.
And when the no people leave, you're just left with the yes people.
And a company full of yes people is a very dangerous place to be buying critical infrastructure from.
Okay, and the third cause?
Governance drift. It's the gap between the values you see in the marketing copy all that talk about beneficial AGI and safety first,
Right.
and the actual pressure in the delivery schedule. When that gap gets too wide, you see ethical dissonance. The researchers feel like they're being asked to violate their own principles, so they walk.
It's interesting because Steyn makes a comparison here that I think is really helpful for anyone trying to wrap their head around this. He talks about the difference between buying old-school software and what he calls a living dependency.
Yes, this is a vital concept for the listener to grasp. We're all used to buying software as a static product.
Yeah.
You compare features, you negotiate a price, you sign a contract.
Right. You buy Microsoft Word 2020, you know exactly what it does. It doesn't wake up on Tuesday with a new personality.
Exactly. It doesn't suddenly decide it won't let you type the word contract because it thinks it's giving legal advice.
Right.
But Frontier AI is a living dependency. The models are updated remotely. The policies on what the AI is allowed to do change constantly. The capabilities can expand or contract unexpectedly.
Contract? You mean get worse?
Absolutely. We've seen this happen. A lab releases a safety update to prevent the AI from saying something offensive, but inadvertently, that update makes the AI refuse to write simple code because it thinks the code is dangerous.
So suddenly my development team, which was flying high yesterday, is just stuck in the mud today because the model got lobotomized overnight.
Yes, and you didn't change a single thing. The vendor changed it. Stan references an Axios article from February 12th, which framed this alarm perfectly. They said the signal is that autonomy and pace are accelerating faster than public governance is responding.
That is a little terrifying when you think about building a business on top of it. It's like the car is going faster, the steering wheel's getting looser, and the people who design the brakes just quit.
That is a very apt, if unsettling, analogy.
So let's get practical. What does this all mean for the business leader listening to this? Why should they care if the brakes are getting loose at the vendor? What are the actual externalities?
Well, because of those externalities. When a researcher leaves because safety standards are dropping, the customer experience changes for the business buying the AI. Steyn lists the specific risks you inherit.
Let's break those down. What's the first one?
Model behavior. If safety thresholds change at the lab, maybe they loosen the filters to make the model more creative, the outputs might become harmful or biased or just weird.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine you have a customer service bot powered by an LLM. It's been working great. But then the vendor updates the model to be more helpful and agreeable.
Right.
And suddenly your bot starts promising refunds that your company policy doesn't allow, just to be helpful.
And we've seen that happen. There was that airline case where the chatbot made up a discount policy, and the court ruled the airline had to honor it.
Exactly. The vendor changed the weights, you paid the fine. That's the risk of model behavior changes.
Okay, that's a clear risk. What is the second one?
Privacy and reputation. If the vendor introduces new monetization models, maybe they start training on your data when they said they wouldn't, your privacy posture changes overnight.
This is the nightmare scenario for enterprise. You tell your clients their data is safe, and then your vendor quietly changes the terms of service.
And these changes often do happen quietly. A safety researcher might leave because they see this shift coming. If you aren't paying attention to that exit, you might be the last to know your proprietary data is no longer proprietary.
And the third risk.
Continuity. Internal instability, mass resignations, leadership coups that can lead to service disruptions. If the team maintaining the API walks out, what happens to your workflow on Monday morning?
It's a cascading effect. Steyn has this quote that I circled 3 times in my notes. Trust the lab is no longer a strategy.
It's a powerful line. He also says, best in class does not equal good enough for the consequences. Just because a company is the biggest or the most famous doesn't mean their risk appetite aligns with yours.
Okay, so we've established the sky is sort of falling, or at least the clouds are looking very ominous. But we promised we wouldn't just admire the problem, we need solutions. And Steyn gives a pretty detailed action plan.
He does. And I like that he shifts from the problem to the solution very clearly. He basically says, okay, you can't control OpenAI's HR department, so what do you do within your own 4 walls?
So step 1 is update due diligence.
Right. And this goes way beyond just checking their credit rating or asking for a SOC2 certificate. You need to treat AI providers like critical infrastructure partners.
Like how you'd vet a power plant that was supplying your electricity.
Exactly. He gives a list of specific questions to ask, which I love. It's not generic stuff. It's pointed questions like, what is your notice period for model updates?
Which is huge. If they're going to change the model, you need to know before it breaks your application.
You need a testing window. If they say, we push updates continuously without notice, that's a massive red flag.
Another good one he had was, what audit logs exist? And who has the authority to pause deployments?
That last one is fascinating. Who can stop the train? In a safety-critical culture, any engineer can usually stop the line if they see a defect.
But in a move-fast culture...
It's usually only the CEO.
Yeah.
And if the answer to that question is nobody, or only the CEO, you know that safety is secondary to speed.
Steyn really emphasizes that asking these questions isn't paranoia. It's responsible procurement.
Exactly. And if a vendor refuses to answer them or they give you vague PR answers, well, that's an answer in itself.
Okay, so that's step 1. Ask better questions before you sign. What's step 2?
Step 2 is internal guardrails. You have to assume the vendor will change. You just cannot rely on stability.
He mentioned something here that sounds like it belongs in a spy movie. The kill switch.
It sounds dramatic, but it's so practical. He's talking about technical middleware. You shouldn't hard-code one specific AI model into your application. You need a layer in between.
So if Model A starts hallucinating or goes down, I can just flip a switch.
Exactly. You can route your traffic to a backup provider or even revert to a non-AI process instantly.
Yeah.
If your AI vendor goes down, can you switch to a different model or have a human takeover? If the answer is no, you have a single point of failure.
It's like having a backup generator. You hope you never need it, but you definitely want it wired in.
Precisely. And alongside the kill switch, he calls for human review on high-impact workflows. Don't let the AI run the loan approval process completely unsupervised.
And monitoring, right. Not just is the server up, but is the server acting weird?
Yes. Look for sudden shifts in output quality, or something he calls refusal behavior.
Refusal behavior.
That's when the AI refuses to do tasks it used to do, usually because of a safety update that was too aggressive.
So my coding assistant suddenly refuses to write Python because it thinks it's dangerous.
Right. And your developers are stuck. You need automated tests that catch that before your users do.
That brings us to step 3, which I think is the most unique part of his advice, the trigger event protocol.
This is where we circle right back to the intro. Steyn's point is, don't just read the article about the resignation and gossip about it.
You treat it as a trigger.
For a formal review.
Yes.
When you see that headline, that head of safety at big AI lab quits, you don't just retweet it. You call a meeting.
A structured review.
A structured review. Call your legal team, call your risk officer, check your contract protections, your indemnities, how is your data being handled, look at your change of control clauses.
He uses an analogy here that really drove it home for me. He says to respond the same way you would if a bank's head of risk resigned publicly.
Or if a cybersecurity chief left a vendor warning of unresolved issues. I mean, imagine that. If your bank's chief risk officer quit and wrote an op-ed saying, I can't ensure your money is safe.
I wouldn't say, oh, that's dramatic. I'd be at the branch withdrawing my cash in 5 minutes.
Exactly. You would protect your assets. Steyn is saying we need that same level of operational discipline with AI. We're so used to treating tech companies as these magical innovators that we forget they're just businesses with risks and politics and failures.
And because AI is becoming so embedded in core business processes, legal, HR, customer support, it has to be governed like a core dependency.
That's right. The era of move fast and break things is fine for a social media app. It does not work for enterprise infrastructure.
This has been a really eye-opening look at what's happening behind the headlines. It definitely changes how I'm going to look at my newsfeed tomorrow morning.
I think the key takeaway here is about leadership. Steyn ends with a very strong point. He says, the public departure of senior researchers is not proof of catastrophe, but it is a meaningful signal that deserves board-level attention.
Right. It's not about panic. We aren't telling listeners to go cancel all their API subscriptions today. It's about vigilance.
Exactly. To quote him directly, if you treat these exits as gossip, you will be surprised by risks you could have anticipated. If you treat them as early warning indicators, that is leadership.
That's a powerful place to land. It really shifts the responsibility back to us, the users. We can't just blame the vendor if we ignored all the signs.
That does.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one final thought to mull over. Something that kind of struck me while we were discussing all this.
Johan.
We've been talking about risk and procurement, but think about the liability aspect. If the people building the intelligence are leaving because they feel the guardrails are failing, and they are saying so publicly, and we are the ones applying that intelligence to our businesses, to our customers.
I see where you're going with this.
If that AI crashes or causes harm or discriminates against a customer, can we really say we didn't know? If the builder warned us the bridge was shapy and we drove our customers over it anyway, are we liable for the crash they saw coming?
That is a profound question. It suggests that ignorance is no longer a defense. The signals are out there. Ignoring them might not just be bad business, it might actually be negligence.
A heavy thought for a Tuesday, but an important one. We'll leave you to chew on that. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Thank you. Stay vigilant out there.
See you next time on The Deep Dive.